Alice in Wonderland syndrome mapped in the brain to improve treatments. Okay. And I've never heard of this myself. When I saw this, I was like, this is odd. This is what it is. So scientists have mapped the brain circuit behind a form of Alice in Wonderland syndrome when someone sees themselves or others in distorted proportions in research that can improve how it is treated. Now, it's apparently not a static thing, this Alice in Wonderland syndrome. In many cases, it comes on at night, and people start to see sort of these distorted, asymmetrical representations of people or objects, things like this, right? It becomes, and that's why they named it as such, very much the Mad Hatter and, Alice sort of changing sizes in the old Lewis Carroll novels. And so the weird part is with this, clearly there's something happening with our brain. And let's see, let me read a little bit from this, and we'll get going. So people with a form of the rare and somewhat mysterious Alice in Wonderland syndrome may one day have a better diagnostic and treatment options after scientists mapped a circuit in the brain implemented in the condition. Nice. Fixing things is always good, or having options is always good. Named after Lewis Carroll's eponymous character, Alice in Wonderland syndrome describes people seeing or perceiving their own body parts as well as those of others and objects in distorted proportions, such as being abnormally large. Now, imagine how bizarre this would be. Everything's normal. The sun goes down, and suddenly you see maybe your arm seems like it's a Popeye arm and is just massive. And it just seems that way. You see it that way, but of course it isn't that way. But it is sort of an asymmetrical perception of your body, and being able to look at it and see, okay, wait, what's going on with this? But it's not just your body, it's other people's, proportions on other people, proportions on different objects. Wild stuff. Never heard of this before in my life. And now when I'm reading about it, I'm like, wow, our mind is definitely a wondrous place. So the condition was only medically recognized in 1955. This is straight from the article. Link is in the description if you want to check it out. Almost a century after Carroll wrote Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, where one chapter describes the character feeling her body grow larger and smaller. When the condition occurs is unclear, but it can be caused by migraines, epilepsy, and inflammation or damage to the brain. Okay. So again, like I said, my point in this is not to make fun of people that have, this type of stuff. That's not the point. The point is the larger concept of why our brain maybe sees these sort of asymmetrical things happening as part of just a human experience and part of the human process, and sort of our processing of reality itself. And look, a lot of ideas, of course, come to mind when you start. Again, this is just a seed idea. We're going to begin here tonight, but this gets even more weird because when you start to think about the asymmetrical just way of the world, we talk about the duality of creation, this type of thing. And we've talked about that often and with Philip K. Dick and that sort of cosmology and looking at the world in a different way. But check this out. We've all heard this old trope, which is actually very true. If you look at your own face and kind of, divide it into two equal spaces, left and right, then you're basically, if you mirror image them, the left side twice and the right side twice, you're basically two different people or four different people, or I guess how's the math work out? You're gonna merge them and change them, and I don't know. Basically, that's one half of your face is not symmetrical to the other side. It's just not. It's not how humans are made. And there's some other interesting science that also on New Scientist, which I'll point out in just a sec, that kind of describes this space of the asymmetrical and how possibly this is an evolutionary advantage. And even they say in some cases that people with asymmetrical faces are even more attractive in some ways. I think one of the ideas that comes to mind, and maybe you don't think he's handsome at all, but he's one of those famous handsome guys, the hunks of old, at least from when I was a young man, Harrison Ford from Star Wars, right? Everybody was like, oh, he's just so handsome. But I mean, his face to me is so obviously asymmetrical. It's just like, it always stood out to me. Not like, wow, that's weird, but it just was a thing. I just noticed it and was like, oh, okay, all right, that's cool. Hey, if Han Solo can rock it, I can rock it too, right? But so in any case, and my face is like that. I've checked it. There we go. All right, anyway, so do the thing with yourself in the mirror. You'll see what I mean. Cover one side, cover the other side, make the pictures, whatever. Anyway, you'll see exactly what I mean. But it does seem strange to me that there's, with nature itself, we have sort of this symmetrical perfection in many cases. I mean, look at flowers and things like this, and some of these aspects that mirror each other. And well, they may not be perfect. I don't think you could say if you take two sides of a flower and kind of do them with like a human face, you'll get a different flower type of thing. You know what I mean? I think it's different. I think it's completely different in nature, where it is sort of what echoes like the Fibonacci sequence, things like this, which we haven't talked about a ton on Troubled Minds, but it's definitely a thing. It's definitely an idea. Okay, so beyond that, this gets even more weird because I was reading a little bit about this and thinking, okay, what are the different wild ideas that can kind of come out of this? Meaning that number one, how come we have sort of this asymmetry in nature and in humanity that is so prevalent and so obvious, and yet we have these other sort of maladies happening like this Alice in Wonderland syndrome that maybe sort of extrapolate that or exaggerate it as maybe something we're noticing or should be noticing. Maybe it's part or maybe it's not of that actual syndrome. Again, like I said, I'm not trying to pick on people that have, you know, particular syndromes and things. So relax on that, chill on that. I know how people can get, and that's not the point at all. So beyond that, okay, now, so the first question is, actually the first question tonight is, where exactly is Wonderland? That's what I want to know. From the Lewis Carroll books and from, of course, the movies they made after that and the animations and everything. Where exactly is Wonderland? There's been much speculation that it was a drug-induced sort of stupor. It was, you know, you could say sort of like Joe Rogan, the DMT machine L, something like this. But that's the first question I want to know, because I want some theories on this, what you guys believe regarding where Wonderland actually is. There you go. That's the first one. Second, what about this bizarre symmetry and asymmetry in nature, and especially in the human experience, of course, you know, like the different sides of our face as I described. Well, as part of that, and why I'm bringing that up, is there's another article, which is also linked in the description down below, and it relates to trauma. Now, the odd part is that, again, back to this sort of Alice in Wonderland syndrome, we're seeing sort of these asymmetrical sort of manifestations of, you know, visual components of this thing that may or may not be static. They said it's very rare to even get this, and then the symptoms don't always stay. Sometimes, you know, they manifest at night for 20 minutes and then they go away, things like this. And there's some actual literature down below. I don't think I linked it just yet, but there's some interesting stuff on NCBI, which is the National Library of Medicine. So you can read a little bit more about the actual syndrome and somebody who had it, and a 6-year-old male child, et cetera, so on. Anyway, so pretty fascinating stuff. But this other one now comes into play here when I was kind of just poking around a little bit, again, seeking some inspiration. And this is again from New Scientist, and this is from January 23rd. The surprising benefits of having an asymmetrical face, body, and brain. And wouldn't you know it? Wouldn't you know it? Here's the subheadline. Our unique asymmetries may be key to getting smarter, faster, and being a bit lopsided doesn't seem to affect your attractiveness. Yes, if Han Solo can rock it, I can rock it too. Anyway, back to this. Now, so looking in the mirror, you may notice a slight imbalance in your features, straight from the article. A leftward curve of the nose, a wrinkle that only appears under one eye, or an ear that is slightly higher than the other. For centuries, this lack of perfect balance was thought to detract from our beauty, and you can find many services from photo filters to cosmetic surgery that aim to correct it. Oh, don't do that. Yet asymmetry is built into the human body and brain, by the way, and for good reason. What's more, new research suggests that it has little influence over our appeal to others. Yes, Han Solo rocking it hard. So here we go. So let's start with the lopsided. Okay, never mind. We're going to skip this because they're talking about lopsided arrangement of our internal organs, our human brains as being these asymmetrical, sponges in our head. That's my term, not theirs. But they're saying that not only do we have this weirdness happening in terms of, let's say, asymmetry and, as I described earlier, nature and sort of maybe a more perfect symmetry in the natural world than we have with sort of the human aspect. Even maybe your hands aren't the same size, or, this arm's a little bit longer than the other arm, or, things like this. Obvious sort of asymmetries happening in people, and they're prevalent. It's something that's everywhere. But the weird part is that it also adds that it's sort of an evolutionary advantage. And this article, if you read deep into this, it starts to suggest that people with asymmetry in their bodies, more pronounced anyway, in different either aspects of their brain or even their body, have a sort of built-in, let's say, they handle trauma better. They're more adaptable. They're more they learn smarter, faster. This type of stuff, right? Meaning cognitively, not suddenly. You got a an inch longer leg and suddenly you're a track star. That's not what I mean. But anyway, so wild stuff when you read into this, and deeper you go. There's are you left-eyed? Are you right-eyed? Any of the rest of these things, and even and here's the weird part about it too. supposedly we're supposed to be, sort of neutral-handed when we're born, right? This type of thing, and then we start to favor one, and then we become, more proficient right-handed or left-handed. Maybe it's genetic, nature, nurture, this type of thing. Who really knows, right? But as usual, there's a lot of really, let's say, steady guesses in that realm. But another weird thing that's pointed out in this article is that when you look through a peephole, most people, whether they're right-handed or left-handed, they always look through the peephole with their right eye. Has anybody noticed that? Do you actually do that, whether you're left-handed or right-handed? Do you always sort of look through, I don't know, dare I say the crosshairs of, no, I'm just kidding, the crosshairs of the door, when you look out the door, when, the mailman knocks, you're not expecting anybody. You're like, hey, I'm not expecting anybody. And you look out the door. Is it your right eye or is it your left eye? You see, so something strange here. And basically, look, the whole idea tonight is this, and the questions now start to mount. What is it with nature and this symmetry aspect or asymmetry? And is there, let's say, maybe this thing built into us where we do have maybe a dare I say, superpower when we've got that rugged Han Solo look, if you know what I mean? Of course, I'm only making a joke there, but it does seem that there's something to this. And back to the Alice in Wonderland syndrome where we started, I do wonder if this is a way to, I don't know, maybe our bodies sort of noticing things about people that we don't notice typically. Like maybe we notice, but sort of subconsciously, and maybe it's sort of extrapolating that. Nobody really knows what causes this. Nobody really knows if there's a cure for this. And it's just a wild thing that I'd never heard of until literally a couple hours ago. And I was like, this is incredibly fascinating. But more fascinating to me is it kind of harkens back to, of course, Alice in Wonderland and the adventures with the Cheshire Cat and and the Queen of Hearts and all the rest. I mean, but anyway, okay, so back to the fun stuff. Number one, what is going on with nature and symmetry and asymmetry? Do you think there is some sort of actual evolutionary advantage if you look like Han Solo? And you get my joke. But secondary, what is happening with this other syndrome? And do you think they're related, this sort of symmetry or asymmetry in nature and people noticing it amongst each other? Have you noticed, just as a case in point and some examples, have you noticed it in yourself? Have you noticed, I notice it a lot in myself. If you look, I've got my two eyes are slightly askew. It's just the way it is. It's the way it's always been. And it's never really bothered me, but I have noticed it in the mirror. I was like, "Oh, it's weird. My eyes are kind of a little off. They're not directly in line or whatever." But still, did you ever notice? Right, I'm on camera every night. Many of you have seen the show lots of times, and so did you notice? Now that I say it, you're going to notice. But this is the type of thing I mean. So there's a lot of things sort of in nature that we are, let's say, very judgmental about and very, let's say, picky, as the human term, picky. But beyond that, I think that maybe there's something to this asymmetry, and maybe it is part of the genome aspect of creating, novelty in people, novelty in nature, novelty in certain different ways. But do you think it is possible that there's actually a way to consider that this is sort of an evolutionary advantage to have asymmetrical brain or face or arms or anything? I mean, I guess you could kind of take this down to the most granular level and even consider that there's asymmetry happening sort of deep within our physiology that we do not have the technology to map just yet. I don't know. I thought it was a fascinating way to look at this and consider that what the hell is going on? Is this sort of glitch in the matrix type stuff? Or again, is this just simply the way, hey, Mike, this is just the way nature is, dude. Get over it. Maybe not. Is there something a little more strange to this or a little more odd as part of this? And I don't know. That's where you guys come in as part of the conversation, and I hope you're into this tonight because I'm going out on a limb with some wild ideas here. But some of this does come to mind, again, where first question, and this is probably the most fun and important question, is where is Wonderland? Where is it? Is it a realm of the imagination, sort of like the Twilight Zone? Is it a DMT realm like Joe Rogan always talks about with the machine elves? Is it dreamland, some sort of waking dream in the forest with the nice smells and the Wonderland aspect kind of creeping up on you during a daydream? Or is Wonderland actually possibly a real place? And of course, you know me, drinking the maybe juice and considering all the ideas. That's where I'm at tonight. That's the most fun one. But then what about the rest of this and the asymmetry of nature and humanity itself? Do you think there is an actual evolutionary advantage as suggested by this other article here, the surprising benefits of having an asymmetrical face, body, and brain? And is it able to sort of stave off trauma somehow, which is really where this conversation is going to head, in that direction. But of course, with Alice in Wonderland, it could head any direction, because she did have dinner with a floating cat that disappeared. What else did Alice in Wonderland do? She played or watched the Queen of Hearts play croquet with flamingos and hedgehogs. What else? I had to make some notes because it's been so long since I've seen this movie. And I don't think I've ever even read the books. Shame on me. So Alice wakes up and realizes it was all a dream in the end, of course. But not before, again, the Queen of Hearts playing the weird croquet. You got the Cheshire Cat appearing and disappearing. You've got the Mad Hatter and the March Hare having the tea party, which, of course, is one of the most famous scenes from that, of course, from the movie. I have seen that. Alice shrinking and growing, all kinds of wild stuff happening. And of course, within the bounds of human imagination, you bet your bippy, 100%. But is it possible that maybe, just maybe, this Wonderland, this asymmetrical possible Wonderland, is a real place, and maybe it resides within us? Or maybe not. And that's probably the most fun conversation. But a lot of other ways to look at this, of course. And as being part of the Troubled Minds crew here, myself, Michael Strange, you can look at this. What about a holographic universe aspect? The allegory of the cave with Plato. You can look at this as maybe the Alice in Wonderland syndrome is seeing glitches in the matrix, and maybe sort of noticing this asymmetry that's built in to maybe fool us. And I'll explain what I mean by that. So when you do music back in the days of MIDI, and I've said this before, you could create a perfect beat, right? Like perfectly to the millisecond, like a perfect, drum line, just perfect. The problem is it just sounds icy. It sounds cold. It just sounds too robotic. It passes way through that uncanny valley of the human aspect going, wait a minute now, this is supposed to be, I was tapping my feet to the beat, but there's something here doesn't resonate. Well, it's they came up with this thing to sort of randomize the quantation of the beats when they hit, because when it was slightly randomized by even just a couple milliseconds here or there and not directly on the exact beat, suddenly the groove was alive and well again, right? We noticed these things. And so I do wonder if this type of thing is actually specifically back to, as I was describing, maybe we notice these things in a larger sense, but it is because we're sort of picking up on glitches in the matrix. If you want to take this to the what is it, what's the theory called, simulation theory. There's a lot of ways to consider this and what the hell's happening. And of course, the human brain being the mysterious organ that it is, I don't know, a lot of ways to consider and look at it. But I think probably the most fun idea here, as we get into some more, we got tons of them tonight because I'm going to keep cranking out some wild ideas. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. First off, probably the most fun is, where exactly is Wonderland? Is it real? Is it a dream realm? Is it a DMT realm? Is it a glitch in the matrix? Is it some sort of phasing of realities? Or is it just, damn it, Mike, get over it, it's just a story. It's just a story. Maybe, maybe not. We're talking about, again, a lot of ways to look at this, Alice in Wonderland. And of course, the most important, and let's say not important, probably least important, but the most intriguing idea to me is, where exactly is Wonderland? As I said before, there's a ton of ways to look at this. And is there something happening with these brain states of symmetry and asymmetry, and sort of that chaos and order of nature, basically dueling with each other within us, as we talk about sort of these archetypes and other things? Maybe there's other things at play.